our esteemed guests who will be with us and participating later on in the evening. At 6 p.m., I'm going to call to order the virtual monthly village board meeting for the Village of Sister Bay for Tuesday, February 21st, 2023. Roll call: Zashki here.
Baker here.
Bell here.
Berto here.
Cox here.
Bronco here.
Okay, for anyone
Right,
interested.
you can unmute yourself there.
For anyone interested, Heidi will be putting the graphic up momentarily. You can stand and join us if you're so inclined in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll start on the count of 3. Do you have the graphic tonight, Heidi, or should we go without?
I'm trying to get it. It's hiding behind my screen.
That's okay. 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance
To
to the flag of the United
can't hear.
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Before I motion to approve the agenda as published, I'm going to make one clarification so everyone's aware. When we come to item 6, the oath of office for our new trustee, Sarah White. Sarah will be an active voting member of our board immediately upon being sworn in by Heidi. That being said, I will motion that we approve the agenda as published.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Do we have any discussion on the meeting minutes for our meeting from January 17th, 2023 as published in the packet? Hearing none, I'll motion that we approve the meeting minutes for January 17th, 2023 as published.
I will second that, Rob.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention, motion carried. Item number 6, the oath of office for Sarah White, our new village trustee. Heidi, take it away,
Sarah?
please.
If you wouldn't mind raising your right hand, please. Do you, Sarah White, having been appointed to the office of village trustee but not yet have entered upon the duties thereof, swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin and will faithfully discharge the duties of said office to the best of your ability?
I do.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
Welcome, Sarah. We're glad to have you. And we will move on to item 7, comments, correspondence, and concerns from the public. Do we have any comments or concerns from the public on a non-agenda item this evening? Hearing none, I'll remind any of our community members who are present, if you do have a comment or a concern related to an agenda item, you will have the opportunity to raise your hand and be offered the floor at that time when the particular agenda item comes up. Okay, moving along to correspondence. Heidi, is there anything that has come in after the packet was prepared that we should be aware of in particular?
There were some items related to the discussion regarding short-term rentals tonight. I don't know if you want to address those now or later.
I believe everyone's had a chance to see the ones that are in the packet, and
Right.
if we need to reference them again later on in the evening, we'll have those for us. Moving on to agenda item number 8, County Supervisor Report from Dave Lenow. Dave is with us. Dave, if you would, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rob. Good evening, everybody.
Hey, Dave.
I do have a couple of interesting items tonight. The first one is we put together a resolution that's going to go to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services concerning remediating and removing some of the birds off Pilot Island. If you are familiar with Pilot Island or have been past any time in the last couple of years, you will recognize that in the 70s and early 80s, it was a beautiful, lush island. It has been totally destroyed by basically cormorants. U.S. Fish and Wildlife owns the island, and since they took it over, they let it become a nesting bird paradise, if you will. They did a study in 2019, which actually that they did themselves, showing a number of different types of avian and bird diseases that have been transmitted from the island due to all the guano that they produce. They have done a lot of environmental water testing around the island, and there are people that are sailing by it getting sick. There are people swimming, and divers are becoming ill from the contamination in the water from it. And so we're sending a resolution on behalf of the town of Washington for Washington Island to see if we can get them in there and do some type of remediation. The remediation that they do is they basically they oil the eggs, if you will, on the nest. And when they do that, the eggs do not hatch, but the cormorants continue to nest on them for an extended period of time. If they destroy the eggs, the cormorants would just lay new eggs right away. So by oiling them over a period of time, it reduces the population. What kind of issue are we talking about? In 2019, when they did the testing, there was over 3,700 nesting pairs on the island. That has since increased almost 10,000 in the last couple of years. Each cormorant on a daily basis eats 6 to 7 pounds of fish. So if you can imagine 10,000 cormorants on the island, the amount of damage that they're doing just to the local fishery around the islands is tremendous. They are also now spreading to some of the other smaller islands around within the town of Washington. And of course, the town is very concerned that they're going to start populating other islands. So they're asking the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to do something about it. Item number 2, we also are requesting the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources to consider a different plan for repairing the Potawatomi State Park Tower. Currently, after the public hearings and public input that they had, they came back with 2 options. Both options are multi-million dollars in cost, and they both put up a ramp, if you will, to allow getting to the tower, up to the top of the tower, similar to one that they did at Peninsula State Park. And they negated to do anything about repairing the tower in its current condition. So I believe there's a historical group in Sturgeon Bay had a study done that they paid for, and they went to some experts in old wood type platforms and buildings. And that particular group came back, and they do this all over the country. They came back and said that they could, for $500,000, you could renovate that and keep it in service for the next 20 to 25 years. And not do anything else as far as updating it. The state did not consider that as an option, so we're asking them to reconsider it. Part of the problem is, even if they went forward with their multi-million-dollar plans, it's not going to be in this budget. It would be in the budget 2 years from now. And if they approve the money, it would be another 2 or 3 years before anything would be done. So a minimum 3 to 5 years will pass. During that 3 to 5 years, they would not do any repair or maintenance or upgrade on the tower. And it's quite possible, according to this other group that did this other study, that in 3 to 5 years, it will be beyond repair. And so when they came to put a new tower up, basically, there would be nothing to work with. So that's the concern there. So we put a resolution together for that to send on to them too. And lastly, some of you are probably aware that several years ago, Door County was one of the counties within the state of Wisconsin that filed a class action lawsuit with other counties in the state concerning opioids. And as a result of that, there's been a number of settlements, and money is distributed to counties and states as a result of that. And we were just told today that I believe it was Walgreens, CVS, and 2 of the pharmaceutical manufacturers have just agreed to an additional $17 billion in settlement for that. And so at some point in time, we're expecting in the next month or 2, we'll be able to get an idea of what amount of that will be coming back to the county for opioid mitigation programs. So those are the 3 highlights of the meeting today. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them.
Dave, I'd just like to add one thing and offer a comment to you and those pursuing the cormorant issue. For anyone who's not aware, a little back history. The cormorant, one of the reasons we have this terrible problem now that has been a bad problem for decades is that for whatever reason, the judges in power who could allow the removal of these adult birds, the killing off of these adult birds, they fail to recognize the fact that these are invasive species. Cormorants are not native to Door County. They arrived by transport, by federal government transport when Wisconsin decided to start putting salmon into the lake to control the alewives in the 70s. And there was concern among the DNR that salmon alone would be able to take care of the alewife population because they weren't certain they would take to the fresh water. They decided to add the cormorants to the mix just in case the salmon wouldn't take care of the alewives. Regarding Dave's point about the up to 10,000 adult pairs now, when there were 1,600 nesting pairs on that island, various organizations began approaching the DNR and the state and the feds wanting to have those adult birds taken care of. Oiling the eggs only since that time now has us with almost tenfold more adult birds, and now humans are being drastically affected, as Dave mentioned. They came in the 70s as brought in. They're not natural. They have a lifespan of 60 years, which explains why from the 70s to the 20s, we now have over 10,000 pairs. So Dave, I would just say, if there's any way you guys can try and emphasize the fact that, you know, we're not dealing with a native species that is all of a sudden now flourishing and contributing problems to humans and the lake and other species. It's an invasive species that's doing this. Thank you.
I agree. I would add one thing to that, Rob, also. The Wisconsin DNR used to have some purview in that, and that's when some of the oiling took place. That was probably 5 or 6 years ago. Since that period of time, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services has taken over the ownership of the island entirely. And so the Wisconsin DNR has no input to what happens on that island anymore.
Right.
And since it's along a migratory bird route, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has chosen to leave it alone. And that is the crux of not being able to get anything done.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Appreciate your report, Dave. Moving on to agenda item 9 this evening, resolutions. Item 9A is resolution number 2023-002, the adoption of a hazard mitigation plan. This is being recommended for adoption by the board. It was adopted by the Village Emergency Management Planning Committee yesterday. Door County has prepared and adopted at a county level the hazard mitigation plan, which includes Sister Bay. This is a plan that addresses how we would mitigate issues such as flooding to prevent damage from natural hazards. The key thing here is without us having a Sister Bay specific plan, we would not be able to apply for FEMA grants in the case of an emergency or disaster. So the recommendation is that the board adopt this resolution. Denise?
So at Emergency Management, yesterday, we needed one clarification and one correction on the document. And because the packet went out before our meeting yesterday, those need to be noted. We needed clarification if there's actually 14 towns in the county, and in the second to the last paragraph, it states the Door County Board of Supervisors hereby adopt the hazard mitigation plan. It should be the Village Board of Sister Bay. So that is how we adopted it yesterday with the amendments. And Julie, did you get clarification on the 14 towns?
I did. There are 14 towns.
Okay.
The only municipality that's not showing up on there is the Village of Forestville, which chose not to adopt it. And real quickly too, Heidi did make that change for the now therefore be it resolved to say it's adopted by the Village of Sister Bay. We do have that corrected copy if anybody wants to see it, but that change was made.
And that is on page 18 of our packet. So I will motion that we approve resolution number 2023-002 with the change as noted, replacing Door County Board of Supervisors with Village of Sister Bay.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 10, presentations. welcome to Julie and John who are with us this evening. We have a presentation from them on the DDC Community Investment Fund allocations and organization. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Julie and John. We thank you for joining us this evening, and I believe Heidi's going to help facilitate some screen sharing.
John, you have control of the screen.
That's great. Thank you. First of all, congratulations, Sarah. That's great. Looking
Thank you,
forward
Julie.
to working with you all. And thank you so much for allowing us the time to present information about Destination Door County's Community Investment Fund. And I'd first like to introduce John Jarsch, who is DDC's Chief Communications Officer. We also have Juliana Beam on the call. She'll be presenting on the Tourism Zone new website. She is the Tourism Zone Administrator, along with Bjorn Johnson, who is a DDC board member. All of our board of directors who are residents and business owners and community leaders throughout the county, such as Bjorn, and our tourism zone commissioners. And thank you to Julie and Rob for all of the time and commitment that you provide to our industry. We can't do it without you. And our entire team, we're all very excited about this program moving forward with the Door County Community Foundation administering the program. So as we continue to evolve into a community shared values organization that balances sustainability for our businesses, for our organizations, and our environment, the DDC Board of Directors, along with our tourism zone commissioners, recognized that it was essential to better support our municipalities and other organizations because of the increased demands on local tourism infrastructure. So an initial task force was formed together with the tourism zone commissioners, the DDC board, and other community leaders throughout the county. And with the Community Foundation's help and facilitation, the Community Investment Fund was created. And it was a process structured by the Wisconsin State Lodging Tax Statute to ensure that the program is completely compliant. And we are looking forward to seeing projects that are strategic, that have long-term impact, that cross municipal boundaries and benefit many, and projects that are not only good for our visitors, but also benefits our residents. We all know that the visitor economy benefits residents with the following. When people visit Door County, they do spend money, and that creates jobs for all of our families. It generates incremental tax revenue that provides us with additional economic opportunities. And it also supports the amenities that enhance our quality of life. So we feel that the visitor economy does help make life better for Door County residents. And the Community Investment Fund, created in partnership with the Tourism Zone, DDC, and Door County Community Foundation, acting as the administrator, it's really a natural evolution of Destination Door County's work, and using a portion of the room tax dollars paid by visitors, this fund will offer grants to projects that benefit our visitors while they're here and improve the quality of life for those who live and work in Door County. The Wisconsin State Lodging Tax Statute requires that we use those room tax dollars by ensuring that a project will be significantly used by visitors. And we can't count seasonal residents, they don't qualify as visitors, but the project must also likely lead to an increase in visitors staying overnight in paid accommodations in Door County. And these are requirements of an application to the Community Investment Fund. However, to earn a grant from the Community Investment Fund, a project must also demonstrate how it will meaningfully improve the quality of life for residents throughout the county. And some of those priorities include creative ideas that have a meaningful impact on the people that live and work in Door County, and that impact crossing municipal boundaries, so it's good for everyone throughout the county. It encourages collaboration, leverages additional resources, and our residents experience the positive impact of the visitor economy. And the more of these priorities that are addressed by an application, the more likely it is that a project will receive a grant. And as I stated earlier, it is necessary that a project will be significantly used by visitors and reasonably likely to increase overnight stays. But that's not sufficient because the project must also positively impact the people who live and work in Door County. So this first year grant cycle will run on a quarterly basis with a deadline of 4 p.m. Central Time on the first Thursday of April. So that's April 6th, July 6th, October 5th, and then going into the next calendar year, it'll be January 4th. So we continue to refer to the fact that the Community Investment Fund must follow the Wisconsin State Lodging Tax Statute rules regarding the use of room tax dollars, because this fund is supported through the 70% that we do receive from the tourism zone, which must be used on tourism promotion and tourism development, as opposed to the 30% that you guys, municipalities, receive to use however you deem appropriate. And we really are encouraging applicants to reach out to the Community Foundation to have an informal assessment of your idea before taking the time to submit a formal application. And there is a common grant application that everyone needs to fill out. And then there is an addendum that is also required. And this addendum has to be completed as it qualifies the project specifically on the state statute requirements. So I believe, John, am I correct in saying we've included an information sheet and an FAQ that covers questions that have come up in some of our previous presentations along with the flow chart in the packet? Okay.
Yes, I believe those should be in their packet.
Okay, perfect. It just gives you some visuals where you can better look and see what some of the other questions have been. And I know, and Heidi, I'm hoping you saw the email that was sent out on February 9th, it really encouraging the municipal clerks to schedule a meeting quickly if you plan on submitting for April 6th. But remember, you can submit something every quarter, and it will be every quarter. We know that this is the first year of the program and there will be learning. And from that, we will continue to make adjustments. So this fund does benefit and continues to benefit the entire county. So I think on this last slide is all of the contact information. And then Bjorn, as a DDC board member, I know you had a few words you wanted to provide as well.
Yeah, can everybody hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so a lot of work has gone into this. I know we had multiple meetings over the last half a year or so, and a lot of the reasons I've been at these village board meetings largely has to do with parking. And one of the things that this CIF program, Community Investment Fund program, can go towards is parking, wink, wink. Because I think parking would qualify per statute as something that's significantly used by transient tourists and is reasonably likely to generate paid overnight stays. And it also qualifies as tangible municipal development. So I think just kind of to plot the idea in everybody's minds here, if you need the extra money to get over the hump for parking, this is the first place to turn. I mean, it's going to be a good slogan to say, hey, visitors pay for their own parking lot. And it's a, just a good, consistent sense of logic for funding downtown. So that's all I had to really say about that. But overall, it's been a great process. I think we've made great strides. I think maybe in the future, there might be, and Julie and John, you may be able to chime in about a little bit about this, but maybe in the future, there's going to be, more funding directed towards a larger scale project, but we're not sure yet. But right now, it's just kind of these intervals of, quarterly deadlines and applications, but that's to be determined yet. So, yeah.
Thank you. does anybody have any questions for us about the community? And yes, sir, Mr. Joshke.
I've got one question, Julie, and I'm going to preface it by saying I'd welcome not only you and John to respond, but also Bjorn if he would want to. My question is this: it's obviously it's a wonderful program, and an intense amount of time has been put into this, and it looks to be top notch, and it looks to be like it's going to be a wonderful thing. In particular, one of the things that I found interesting in going through all the materials was that you spelled out very clearly, which is in our packet on page 46, about the thoroughly vetted evaluation committee, the strict conflict of interest policy that ensures there's no connection with an application, et cetera, anonymity, providing the group an opportunity to judge all applications, et cetera. And then at various points in the packet, there's excellent information on, here's how you would have to qualify. So my question is, directing people to reach out to the foundation for what's termed an informal assessment of your idea prior to the submission of a formal application. If you could explain to me how that is not to be taken as a pre-screening process that might send somebody away to not file an application because they got the sense of, oh, this isn't really the kind of thing that would be supported. But then if that person would happen to see a similar idea, get a grant, then they might be saying, well, hold on a second. And then they might feel pre-screened. So if you could just kind of explain, it'd be helpful should anyone, contact me or staff saying, what's the deal with this process, that we know the pertinence of that, informal assessment with the foundation before turning in an application. Thank you.
That's a really great question, and I'll pop in, and then John or Juliana, if you guys feel, or Bjorn. The informal assessment is really to support the municipalities or organizations prior to grant submission to ensure that state statute requirement. And that really is the crux, because it has to pass those two. And if a project doesn't, then they have to figure that out. And I think the evaluation process is based on the priorities as well as the state statute. And I think if one grant was, or one applicant was similar to another, and they didn't fulfill the criteria, they would both be told the same thing. The Community Foundation, this is what they do, and they're very good at it. And they really want applicants to be successful in getting those applications into the grant. And as an example, if somebody does not receive an award, and they can call and ask the foundation team, they won't be able to give them why the application was turned down, but they can give them guidance in how to perhaps make some changes to make it a higher priority grant application. John, do you have anything to add to that?
I know one of the things that has been talked about in several of the meetings that the public forums that we hosted last month was just that the foundation team is really there to try to help, not hinder. They really want to try, their job is like to make anybody that's applying have the best possible chance. That doesn't necessarily mean everybody's going to get a grant, but they're really there to try to help. And, part of the process we went through was talking to legal team, lawyers, the last, 5-6 months, to ask a bunch of questions regarding, okay, would this qualify? Would this qualify? would this qualify? And we went through that process. So, and that's some of the knowledge that the community foundation staff has. They have that, all those notes from the lawyers that we talked to. So they are really there to try to help let people know, you know, not a pre-screen by any stretch, but try to make their application as strong as it possibly can be.
Thank you, John and Julie, for that. That explains it clearly. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Any more questions? If not, then John can talk about the municipal reimbursement program.
All right, I guess hearing none, we'll move on then to keep things cruising. The municipal reimbursement program was a program that our board of directors started in 2022. And it serves to reimburse municipalities like the Village of Sister Bay for the amount that you pay to fund the Door County Tourism Zone Commission. As you know, and as Heidi can attest, the tourism zone invoices each municipality's beginning of the year to help pay for the administrative services of the tourism zone to collect and disperse the room tax that's collected in the county from all 19 municipalities. And that percentage is based on the tourism zone's annual audit process. And the Village of Sister Bay's percentage of that was 13.55% based on the tourism zone's most recent audit. The program this year, our municipal reimbursement program, will provide $376,057 to Door County municipalities, including $50,959 through the Village of Sister Bay. And I checked our notes, and I believe that check, you had submitted your check. The process goes, once a municipality sends their check to the tourism zone, the tourism zone administrator immediately lets us know, and we in turn turn around this year and send that check to you, and you should have that check already for $50,959. I believe that was sent out earlier this month, a couple of weeks ago. The reason for that is during the program's inaugural year last year, we heard that the process we had initially set up was a little tricky. A little cumbersome. And so we heard what the clerks had said and some other elected officials, and wondered if we could evolve that program to make it a little bit more user-friendly. And so we listened. And so this year, that's what we did. Instead of making a disbursement, we turned it into a reimbursement. And so as soon as the municipality sends that check into the zone, we in turn will send that check right back to the municipality and do it in a reimbursement way. Or disbursement way, excuse me. Now, the only caveat with these dollars, just like it was last year, is because they're from the 70% of room tax that we get, the dollars have to be used for specific things based on room tax statute, as Julie was talking about. And so the Village of Sister Bay, I'm very confident that you have more than enough things in your annual budget that will cover anything that has to do with visitors. So I don't anticipate that being any issue for you. You may very well have it spent already. The other thing that we changed is we're no longer requiring receipts to be submitted for us to send you that check. We're very confident that your regular record keeping process will be more than sufficient. Should any questions come up down the road where we just need to show exactly where those expenses were paid. But your regular record keeping practices should be fine for that in case any requests might come in down the road. The last thing is, if you do have any questions about the program, please reach out to our colleague Yvonne Torres at the information on the screen there. And she certainly can answer any questions, but we're hopeful that really the program has been changed up enough to where you shouldn't have to deal with too much. And since you already have your check for 2023, we hope that process was smooth for you. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that program. Otherwise, I will turn it over to our last person, Juliana from the Door County Tourism Zone. All right, Juliana, why don't you go ahead? I didn't hear any questions. So thank you all.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
I'd be happy to. Thank you again for having us tonight. I just wanted to give some updates on the tourism zone side where we have a few updates starting in 2023. And the first of those is our website. So the tourism zone website has been in need of updates for the past several years. The age of the site has really impacted the usability of the site, and it's required us to complete an overhaul. We worked with Bay Lakes Information Systems and Tweak, which is attached to TownWeb. And TownWeb is what is used by most municipalities to host their sites. And we've completed a sort of an overhaul of that. The picture you see there is our previous site, and we're going through 3 phases of updates. The first was really the aesthetics of the site. That was the Tweak and TownWeb. That was what they were directed to do. So that's been completed. So when you go onto our site, it'll look very different now. And we really wanted to make it more mobile friendly. So whether you're using a laptop, a phone, or a tablet, you'll be able to access the website and all of its features, which is very important to us. And we're also increasing the security. So we had one phase of increasing the security, and we'll be adding others as we go along. The second phase of the website update is going to change the way that our permit holder and agent profiles are established. Previously, we had usernames that were not attached to anything. If we have any permit holders or agents on right now, there was a username that was RT and had a random number attached to it. We also had every permit attached to a different profile. So our agents or our owners that had multiple properties did not have the ability to see all of them listed at once. They had to sign into different profiles. This next update is going to change that. So the login will be attached to the email address of the owner and or agent, and they'll be able to see all of their properties listed at once they log in. We're also changing the way the profiles operate. Currently, when someone logs into their permit holder profile, which is automatically assigned once they register for a permit with us, they're able to see their previous filings and they're able to file online, but they're not able to use any of our other forms or access documents. So we're going to be adding spaces to change contact information, amend returns, deactivate properties, or remove agents if necessary, and also to store documents like the Door County permit, or if they have a permit with Sister Bay, they could also store it with us there, along with their Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection license if they'd like to keep it all in one place. We're also increasing security on that side. We're going to be requiring dual authentication for our permit holders to log into those profiles. So it's going to be pretty simple when they enter their email username and password. It's going to send a message to their email address asking them to verify that they are trying to log into their tax profile. That's because we take security very seriously, and we want to ensure that their tax information, banking information is protected. We're going to be changing around the document storage as well to also include notices. So if someone is late for their reporting, if there's a notice that needs to go through about legal fees or any other issues with the property, we'll be able to upload it directly to the profile. So when they log in to complete their filing, they'll be able to see it there. It's also, we're in the third portion of our update, we're also going to have improved public data accessibility. So there's a pretty limited range of data that's available to the public right now. It's mostly contained to our specific data reports. And if you want to get a list of current permit holders, for example, you have to email our office, but we're going to be expanding that to have more of a search bar of customizable reports that are available to anyone who logs into our website. We are, of course, going to be sticking to a statute in terms of public information that's available and tax information that needs to be secured and cannot be viewed by the public. But it is going to give our municipalities the opportunity to track more closely any specific data that they're looking to get, like their average daily rate year over year, if they'd like to generate a report like that, or if they'd like to see, you know, a 5-year comparison of what they received in November in terms of room tax. So it's also going to improve that clarity and accessibility there. John, if you want to go to the next couple slides. This is our old website design. It was difficult for people to read and see. We got a lot of feedback about it not being very intuitive. And then we've now switched over to our new website design, and we've tried to make it a lot cleaner. We now have our sign-in page available readily on the front page when you go to the home login screen. And we also have our login instructions right up front with frequently asked questions, a calendar of our events, and clearer monthly room tax reporting. And because of all these updates and what we're doing to improve the user experience, we are transitioning to online only reporting. So for the sake of paper usage, efficiency, and making sure that reports are completed correctly and in their entirety, we are going to be making this transition. We did hold 3 information sessions, 1 by Zoom and 2 in person in January. And we did record those Zoom sessions and make them available on the homepage of our website. There's a video and there's a set of step-by-step instructions in PDF form. And we want to make sure that all the municipalities have this information and if they're giving out information on it, we want to make sure that their websites and the information that they're providing to potential permit holders, it falls in line with the way that we've changed this up a little bit. We have in the past, we've already transitioned about 91% of our permit holders to online filing before this. So it's not going to be a really significant change for the vast majority of our permit holders. And we have had great success so far in making that transition. So I have full faith that it's going to go very smoothly.
Thank you, Juliana. Julie, John, is there anything else this evening from your standpoint, other
No,
than any questions?
Thank you. Really, really, truly, thank you for allowing us to come in and present and taking time. We really appreciate it. And we're always available for any questions or any support that you need from us.
We appreciate that, and we appreciate the partnership. Do we have any questions for Julie or John or Juliana? Okay, hearing none, I'll say thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
guys.
you.
We'll move on to item 10B regarding the Gibraltar Area School Referendum, a presentation from Superintendent Brett Stouslin. Brett, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We're glad to have you. The floor is yours.
Great, thank you. I'm not sure in your packet if you have a couple handouts that were included. If not, I can share them with the screen
We have
share.
them. We
Otherwise-
can, it's
Okay.
page 49 is where they start for trustees who are looking to find them.
Yeah, and I just, I am sharing information at the school board, the Gibraltar School District has decided to go to referendum April 4th of this school year. And what prompted the move to the referendum is back in August, we had a facility study. There were several larger issues that we were having at the school, and we decided to bring in a outside company to do a facility study. And then in October, they presented the study and basically gave us 7 options. One of the options that we're not hoping to go this route is if we patched each of the things or Band-Aid all the issues. And a lot of the issues were safety and security, not being ADA compliant in a lot of our spaces, just because of the age of the building, some HVAC issues, plumbing, electrical, The oldest portion of our building is the original gymnasium, which is the 1930s. And then we have a lot of 1950s spaces that surround that. And when they said if we would Band-Aid and try to fix each thing by itself, we were talking anywhere from $50 to $60 million to do it. And we would have to do that within our own budget over time. One of the options was about a $29.8 million option that is tearing down what I call the middle section of the school. And that's where 90% of the 90% of the issues are within our building. And if I can share, I have a map.
You do have permission to share.
Great. Can people see that?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the existing school. This is the front of the school. In 2018, the district went to referendum and created, which is now a new IMC, many new high school classrooms. And the school board is calling this phase 1 of the school renovation. And then this new section, this whole middle section, which includes some high school course classes, a lot of middle school classes, and some elementary in the basement area. So this whole area would be new with renovation to what is currently the cafeteria and kitchen. And like I said, this would take care of about 90% of our issues. There was conversation about should we look at touching the elementary school, which is right in this gray area. However, that was completed in 1988 and 89, and it really has a lot of life left in it compared to this 1930s, 1950s section, which doesn't have as much life to it. And the issues that are in the current elementary area, the 1988 and 89, a lot of those are cosmetic, and we can take care of those within our regular budget. Kind of why now? As somebody asked me, are we going to referendum because Sevastopol went to referendum? And that's not the case at all. It really is coming out of need. In the way the state runs referendums in odd years, 2023, you can only go to referendum in the spring. Otherwise, you're waiting until even years where you can go in spring or fall. There's lots of information. If people want more information on our website, there's a video, there's a tax impact calculator where you can put in the value of your home and see what that impact would be. There are fact sheets, and I'm just showing you here. We had a public information meeting last night. We have 2 more coming up, March 9th and March 15th. And those are where we have about 20 minutes of information. Then we give you a tour of the school and the spaces that we're talking about. And I believe seeing the spaces is probably the easiest way for people to understand what we're talking about when we talk about some of the ADA issues, talk about some of the safety and security, as well as looking into our boiler room spaces, seeing our plumbing, our areas that have asbestos, et cetera. So I encourage people to come to those if they are interested. And one of the questions that we get is, what is the impact? What's the tax impact? In general, what we're saying, it's about 19 cents per $1,000 of your home value. So if your home is valued at around $300,000, it's a $57 impact a year. And so obviously, if you have a $600,000 home, you're looking at about $114 over the course of the year. And just to get a sense of what the district's tax impact have been over the years, you can see this last year, the the school district's impact on people's taxes was $3.42. This year it dropped 44 cents to $2.98. Cents, and then that addition of 19 cents per thousand would put it at $3.17 moving forward. So the one thing we have planned meetings for people to attend, but if there is ever a group that is interested in coming in, they have I'm happy to give people tours. Happy to let, if it's a Saturday, to show people around. We have, several coffees planned. And as if there's a group out there that would like us to come in and talk to their specific group, happy to do that as well. We're at Time Cafe this Friday at 9 a.m. Next week, we have 2 different places on the docket, and we're looking for more, but we have Bailey's 57, what we're going to be at on March 28th, February 28th, and then March 2nd, we're at SIP. So we're trying to get out, and we want people to vote. We don't tell people how to vote, but we want to know what the community of Gibraltar thinks about the referendum. So that's kind of my quick spiel, but if there's any questions or any comments, I'm here.
Do we have any questions or comments for Brett? Okay, Brett, thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate it.
You bet. And I feel like I'm part Sister Bay. I'm on the line. I'm half Liberty Grove, but half Sister Bay. So my water and sewer comes that way, but everything else is going Liberty Grove. But thank you for having me. And if there's questions that you have as a board later, please feel free to email me at the district.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving along to agenda item 11, discussion and action items. Item 11A, the development agreement regarding the move of a cabin for Roots Inn and Kitchen on Maple Drive. Staff report is on page 53. Plan Commission recommends approval. This is essentially regarding the move of a cabin onto the property to be retrofitted to provide laundry services. They need increased laundry area considering the growth of business. Julie, Denise, anything you would like to add
I
regarding
do
this?
not have anything to add. It was pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy development agreement.
Chad?
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to talk to Denise about B2 for 3 or 4 years. So since this is B2 and I have you, why can't this building they put there have housing? Why can't it have a shower? What happened to auxiliary residence in B2? Also, if you read the intent to B2, mixture of land uses that will encourage people to walk, provide more employment and housing options. Why doesn't B2 have something for workforce employee housing within it? Like, why can't the development agreement say, yeah, put a cabin back there, put a shower in there, sleep there, but it's got to be a year-round residence. The lack of creativity in B2, and if you read the parking requirements in B2, it still talks about auxiliary residence. It talks about things that would encourage mixed use. Can you even do mixed use in B2? Is mixed use allowed in B2 anymore? If I want to build a business on the bottom floor and have housing on the next 2 floors, which would make absolute sense in B2, it's the intent of B2. Can you even do that anymore? I don't think they should be limited to what they're being allowed to do, is why I'm saying this. I will vote for this. I would encourage them to make room for a shower, and hopefully zoning at some point, planning will wake up to this issue in B2. I don't get it.
Well, this is what they asked for, Chad. This is what they told us they wanted to do to it, that it was not for any kind of.
Well, but because it's not allowed, right? It's not allowed.
Well, I think And if Colin's with us, maybe he can talk to this.
This has
him-
nothing, is it
No.
allowed? Is it allowed? Regardless, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus. I've been trying to talk about B2 forever, and this is just the opportunity I got. You personally have put me off for years. Why is auxiliary residence not allowed in B2 anymore?
I'd like to address, take a stab at that, Chad. So we did talk about auxiliary dwellings. I do believe that we need auxiliary dwelling units as a part of the village's attainable housing. I think it's an important part. I think there is a great deal of leeriness that comes about because of the short-term rental implications and the intensity use that comes from short-term rentals when you start stacking multiple units. Now, what we just learned at the last Plan Commission meeting leads us to believe that there's a lot more options, and I certainly will push for those auxiliary dwelling units again. I mean, the Plan Commission was agreeable to do it until it was determined that there was no way to control those auxiliary dwelling units from becoming short-term rentals.
And Nate, I don't argue that point, but B2 is exactly where short-term rental should be. If we were going to have a zoning that allowed for it, if we were going to pick a dream, it's homes right next to businesses, right next to the beach. It would, if they wanted to add 3 units back there, they have the biggest lot.
And I'm gonna jump in and direct us back to the agenda item as it was presented. We can certainly note this topic as raised by Chad and reiterated by Nate as a future agenda item. But Denise's point was clear. The development agreement and the discussion herein at this meeting relates specifically to what they requested, and that's represented in the development agreement. So do we have any other comments to the specifics of what was requested as reflected in the development agreement?
I have nothing.
No other comments other than I think that it was requested as it was requested because the other opportunities weren't there to explore.
I respect your
I
opinion,
disagree.
Don, but I don't think we should be putting words in the mouths of people who are not with us this evening on
I
that.
totally agree with you, Rob. Totally agree with you on that. And I think that if we're agreed that it will be on a future agenda, then I think we're good to go.
Absolutely. We're going to have Heidi make a note of that right now.
That would be a Plan Commission agenda, not a board
That will
agenda.
go to a Plan Commission meeting agenda as detailed. Julie's making a note of it now as well. So with that in mind, I will motion that we approve the development agreement for Roots Inn and Kitchen as presented.
Second?
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 11B, I'll be abstaining from as to the fact that Sister Bay Inn is one of my employers. I'm going to turn this 11B agenda item over to Julie.
Sure. This is another one. It's pretty self-explanatory. With this one, they have a small cabin on, or I should say a small shack on the property. It used to be used by the people that worked in the cherry orchard, and it's been sitting vacant. It's actually been used for storage. And the owner decided he wanted to explore renovating it and using it as a rental unit. Basically expand his resort by 1 unit. He met all the requirements. We've got some stipulations in there. Again, pretty self-explanatory development agreement. Another easy one for us.
Okay.
So, is there a motion then to approve that one?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Pretty easy.
Moving on to item 11C, discussion on the impact and timeline of the Plan Commission's directive regarding STRs in the R2 zone. Julie's staff report on this begins on page 89 in the packet. I'm going to turn this over to Julie and anything she would like to put forth as an intro before we have any discussion that trustees would care to have.
Sure. Well, what the Plan Commission found in their research on short-term rentals, we start talking about zoning and where you could regulate short-term rentals, etc. And it became clear that, or one thing that we shared was that under current zoning, you can have a short-term rental anywhere except R2 in a multifamily or condominium development. It's been that way as far as we could tell back to 2004. Before that, you couldn't have them anywhere in the village whatsoever. But around 2004, that was changed to say we would allow short-term rentals, just not in that R2 zoning district. So in a discussion with the Plan Commission, we're like, what do we do? And we all agreed they are violations and we do have to follow up on them. I ran the numbers, and what we have are, and it's some interesting numbers, to be honest with you. We have 900 condominium units in the village. And so I'm not talking short-term rentals, but just condominium units. And then of those condominium units, 576 of them are in R2. So basically those 576 are prohibited from being rented at the current time. What we do know is of the 576, 15 of them are being rented, which means 15 are in violation. So we basically have 97% of those R2 condominium units are in compliance and 3% are in violation. So then we started looking at the details about where are these specifically located. And we're seeing the 15 that are in violation primarily are in 5 condominiums. One of them was built in 2020. That's what we call Shoreview 1 and 2. It's kind of in the area of the old schoolhouse, if that makes sense. That one, I think we can, anyone that was on the Plan Commission or remembers that case can say we messed up, because in the minutes we talked about how they should be renting it as a short-term development. And in the development agreement, we didn't say they can rent them as short-term. We said they should. So it was a little misleading, the development agreement was, but I think at that time, and I wasn't here, but my understanding is everybody thought that Shoreview 1 and 2, built in 2020, or had the development agreement in 2020, was going to be short-term rental. We have in Shoreview condo, 6 of the 15 short-term rentals are actually in those condos. So not quite half are in those Shoreview condos. I'll be honest with you. I think the village needs to rezone Shoreview 1 and 2 to a business district so that those rentals are legal, because we did agree at that time that these would be a good place for short-term rentals. The other short-term rentals that are in violation are in 4 developments. They're in Skoglund condo, which was built in 1981, Highland Green condo, built in 1983, Orchard Townhouse condo, built in 1985, and Harbor View condo, there's one of them in there, was built in 1979. All of those condos, when built, were built at a time when short-term rentals weren't allowed anywhere, nowhere other than a hotel, in the downtown area. So houses couldn't have short-term rentals, the condos couldn't have short-term rentals. I'm guessing what happened over time, people just forgot about it. They didn't know. So we had people start renting them. And it's definitely understandable, but the reality is we still have a violation there. And what do we do about a violation? The Plan Commission gave staff the directive to write them and explain to them, you are in violation. They do have short-term rental licenses, and the Plan Commission decided we would honor that license, which expires June 30th. Once those letters went out, we got a lot of calls. We got a lot of calls from the ones that are in violation. We did send letters to them. We did notify them of this meeting, that this would be discussed at this meeting. The other 97% have not been notified of these discussions. So Rob had asked that this be put on the agenda because there were a lot of concerns from the 15 that were in violation. I think, you know, the purpose was to just bring it before the board, get some feedback on their thoughts. Eventually, you know, this should go back to the Plan Commission, I think, and they should probably have a hearing to hear from the 3% and then the 97%, you know, is it time to change that rule? We don't know, but let's hear from people. But right now we do have a problem where we do have some of them that are in violation. Like I said, the Shoreview condo 1 and 2, which has the 6 of the 15, that one's kind of our fault and we should fix that. We should rezone that in Plan Commission. You know, I'll be bringing that up with them next week to move forward on that one. But it's these other 4 condos where the other 9 violations are that we have to discuss and say, what is the best approach right now? Like I said, they're in violation and we treated them like any other zoning violation. We said, hey, we've got a problem. Here's a letter. We need to correct it. And that's where we're at right now. Many of them wrote letters. We have letters from attorneys. We've got many of them on the call. But I will shut up now and let you guys talk about it. That's what I know.
Don will go first and then Chad will be next.
Sorry, Chad. So I guess what stood out to me is when we say, hey, well, it was our fault on the 6 out of 15, so we're just going to allow that to happen, and we're going to let's just consider changing and making that a business district, and that'll make us feel better about the issue we had. And then we have 9 others out there that we could make the decision to either grandfather in, treat the same as the Shoreview, as the other 6 that are up at Shoreview that are still in the R2, but are in violation. So there's a lot of choices here, but I don't know that we can treat those differently, whether we made a mistake or didn't make a mistake as a board or as a planning commission, by saying, well, you guys should have short-term rentals here. Whatever the semantics of the wording was, whether somebody said you guys should do that or you can do that, I don't think is really relevant. You know, a lot of people who purchase those, they're obviously very expensive investments. They probably purchase them for short-term rentals, and maybe the other 9 they didn't, but they have an opportunity and they've been doing it for a while. So I have an issue. The issue I have more than any is the June 30th, because a lot of these people have already rented throughout the year, through July and August and even into September, October. And they've got visitors to Door County, visitors to Sister Bay, that, you know, they're going to have to call and say, you can't come here on vacation with your family because the village of Sister Bay has decided we're no longer going to honor your short-term vacation. So I think at least at a minimum, we have to extend that June 30th deadline to the whole season. Maybe that's the end of October, and allow people that have made vacation plans to be at any of these places to actually enjoy their vacation. Otherwise, we really look like we're stubbing our toe on this. But I don't think you can treat the Shoreview and the others differently. I think you have to treat them the same. So sorry, Chad, I'll shut up now and I'll let you go ahead and speak.
Oh, well, Don touched on my biggest concern. Being in this business, the worst thing you can ever do is have to cancel somebody's vacation. Flights booked, families planned. The week they're coming, they may not find something comparable at this point. I think at the very minimum, we have to honor these people through the end of October. It's a little easier November, December to have people move around if they have a reservation or 2 then. But at the very minimum, because this sounds like, and I know a lot of people are going to speak, there's going to be a lot of opinions, and there's going to there's going to take multiple meetings to make decisions because of if zoning is changed, if it is not changed, whatever the case. Because of it partially being our error, we need to honor these people to rent through October this year. And therefore it'll give time for everything to play out, however it plays out in plan, however it comes back to the board. But to dislocate somebody's vacation, I mean, I would go nuts. I mean, and it's the worst position to be in. It's happened to us because of, bad things, right? Something happens with the property. It is the worst thing to have to be in a position to do. And it's not just the owner's money, it's the tourist, the visitor's vacation. And we have to do that. Nothing less than October, maybe even December, right?
I'm going to appreciate those comments, and I'm going to jump in now and clarify for everyone. And Julie can attest to this. My sole reason for wanting this brought before the board was when I realized that in the Plan Commission consensus to say they're good on their license through June 30th, that the one thing, in my opinion, we did not give credence to was the fact that, does that mean through the end of the year, the season, knowing that is essentially what Don and Chad mentioned would be, a result. So what I told Julie, my whole purpose for bringing this forward was, I do not believe that we should treat them all equally and not make any of them have to contact a deposit holding guest and cancel their vacation. And that under the circumstances, in my opinion, we should call it grant or grandfather those 15 the right to rent those units through 2023, inclusive of up to and including the cherry drop and New Year's Eve, and that we pick a date quickly at the beginning of 2024 when things would go into effect. I think if we're going to consider ourselves and declare ourselves in public forum at the times when some of us do, that we're a premier tourist destination, then part of being a premier tourist destination is not alienating longstanding guests who have paid deposits to come here. And also, I think this is a unique situation in the sense that the bottom line is we have rental owners who in some cases have owned these units for years. And to say that maybe they forgot the rules or something of that nature, in my opinion, doesn't apply, because what's happened is doing the right thing. They registered with the tourism zone, doing the right thing. They took out licenses when the village said, take out a license. And so, in my opinion, in this case, by us granting them licenses to do this activity, that precludes them needing to remember, or if they were never aware of a rule or whatever, by us giving them that license, we were telling them it was okay to do this. And in that circumstance, I only believe it's just to treat all of these 15 equally and say, you have the rest of the year to utilize these as rentals as you have, and that everything goes into effect early January 2024. That's my sentiment that drove this forward this evening. Denise?
So this is an unfortunate situation that the village is in, and 16 unit owners. I am uncomfortable with making any kind of determination off of the cuff tonight. I think there is not a closed session for us to consult the village's attorney and find out different ramifications, what our options are, what's legal, what's not legal. So I suggest that at our next meeting that we have an executive session to sit down with Randy and discuss this before we move any farther.
And I would just like to add, certainly if there's a majority of our trustees that agrees with Denise and wants to motion thereof, that's well and good, and everyone has that opportunity. I would just like to clarify to Denise's point, and Randy will attest to this. I did contact Randy ahead of this just to make sure that it was within legal realms and appropriate to bring this forth for discussion in open session this evening. And Randy said he found no reason why it could not be discussed as we're discussing now in open session. So if there's a majority of you that feel otherwise, then there'll be an opportunity to motion in that regard at some point. Chad?
Yeah, I just think it's important that these people have a little bit of resolution for this year. I'll make a motion that we grandfather in these people that have a permit.
Excuse me, Chad, I've had my hand raised for quite a few
Oh,
minutes.
I'm sorry, Nate.
I'd
Sorry.
like a chance to speak. I've
Yeah,
politely.
Nate?
Could I say something, Don?
Hold on, Nate Bell has the floor, and after he does, anyone else will have the chance to speak. Nate?
So I think something that has not been mentioned that came up in Plan Commission is my shock, and I don't think it fully sank in. The fact that we had the option to restrict short-term rentals in certain districts. That is not something that I was aware that we could do. I'm not entirely sure we can do. I don't know if that was bad advice on previous administrators or not. I think that after digesting that, if we have that option, I think that we need to be careful not to make any sort of radical change in any district. I think that we need to understand what powers we do have to restrict in certain districts. And even if we do have that option to say, no, you can't do it, I think that we could use it to curtail and manage it. But I'm uncomfortable with the current situation, not without understanding where we legally stand, because of I don't know how many times that we have heard that from attorneys. I believe Randy has told us that at one point, and also from previous administrators. So I think that we need to let these rentals go through the end of the year, through December 31st. And in the meantime, figure out what we should do, and not just look at this as just one district. This one district is an immediate issue. However, I believe short-term rentals are a more complicated issue that we should deal with. And we do have these powers. Let's use them intelligently and have a carefully thought out plan. I'm good.
Chad?
Well said, Nate. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to allow these people that have permits in this district currently to be able to allow to rent through the calendar year of 2023. And therefore giving you, planning, us a whole lot more time to figure it out. Doesn't hurt these, doesn't hurt vacationers, doesn't hurt us as our reputation as a village. That's my motion.
So let me just make sure that I understand. So what you're saying then, Chad, is that there would be no renter would be allowed in any of those units on the evening of New Year's Day.
Yeah, it's a good point, Robin. You brought that up before.
If you say January 2nd, then we're granting them the ability to.
Sure, good, yeah, at January 2nd.
Okay, so if you guys want to remove your motion in second, that can be rephrased.
I'll rescind.
Okay.
And then you'll make that same motion again, Chad, except.
I'll make a motion that we allow the current permit holders, not anybody else grabbing one this year in those districts, the current ones that have a permit with the Village of Sister Bay. And that have, been renting in the past. Just
in the R2 district.
You can write that up the way to cover that, right? To be allowed to rent through January 2nd of 2024.
I'll second that.
Okay, before we take a vote on that, we'll take discussion. Denise and Randy had their hands up. Denise, would you like to go first, and then we'll hear from Randy?
Sure. So I understand the motion. I understand the rationale behind it. My question is, how is it that staff is directed for the permitting because the license is for an entire year? Is there a separate permit or a new permit that has different dates that for these particular units only that would go through January 2nd? Is that how you would direct staff to proceed?
My opinion would be that just as in the same manner in which these 15 rental owners received previous communication, we would send them a letter saying the resolution to the situation is that their license, and we can quote their number of their particular license, would be good through January 2nd of 2024.
But they have to reapply. They'll be reapplying for an annual permit. It's not, the current
Yeah.
permit expires June 30th. That's what
I
I'm
would-
asking.
Yeah.
So they
I'd be
have
okay
to
with
fill
that.
out a new permit. How are
okay
we
with
addressing that?
It'd be a custom permit that would be good through January 2nd, 2024 for those R2 units, I would think. Chad?
I don't see it any different as the permit they currently have that you're willing to, well, I guess you were waiting until June 30th, so that is a difference. Yeah, maybe a custom permit. I would lead Julie and staff to decide what they think best, or maybe, and Randy has his hand up, so he may say no to all this.
Randy, please.
Thank you. Chad, no, I don't say no to it. I recognize this is a real problem. And what I would say is that if you're going to allow this to continue through January 2, and I certainly have no objection to that type of direction, what you're really doing is directing staff not to take enforcement action of the existing zoning violations in this regard through through January 2. So you're not giving a special authorization above and beyond the zoning ordinance. You're recognizing now that there is a zoning violation, but directing staff not to take enforcement action through January 2 of 2024 with respect to those in the R2 district. And with respect to Denise's question, I think the answer to that is on each one of those permits that's renewed on on July 1 of 23, there is information placed in that permit indicating that it's only valid until January 2 of 2024. And, that also gives some of these owners time to try to fix the predicament that they're in. For instance, some of them may want to apply for rezoning. That gives them time to do that, to rezone the building that they're in.
Don?
Yeah, so Randy, to your point, so in an effort not to ask our staff to ignore enforcing where there are violations, is there an opportunity for us to change that date from June 30th officially and legally to January 2nd, so that we're not asking them to turn a blind eye and to ignore it, but it just doesn't take effect until then? How would we go about that?
Chairman, may I, Mr. President? There's no special permit that's granted allowing this. It is a violation. And just like any municipality and any part of a municipality has the right to decide when they're going to enforce violations and when they're not, just like the state patrol officer who's out there and says, I'll arrest you at 62 miles an hour, but I won't arrest you at 61 miles an hour. That's really what we're doing. So recognizing, look, there's some background here. We know that the village made some errors in allowing for this in the past. So we've got to have an adjustment period, and we won't enforce during that time period. But they still have to have a permit. They still have to have the short-term rental permit, and they still have to have the registration through the Door County Tourism Zone during that time period.
So it sounds like they have the permits, but so the June 30th extension was then still just saying we wouldn't enforce the rules until June 30th. And what we're saying is we're just going to extend that on even further.
June
We're gonna-
30th is the end of the license period.
Yeah, it's the end of the annual license period that they took out the prior July 1st.
Yes, but Don's point is that we're ignoring it. It's a violation now. We should evict anybody vacation in these places because we know it's against the thing. We're
Right.
already turning the blind eye till June 30th. So we're just gonna
Right.
turn it a little further, is what
Right.
Don is.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Chad. Yeah, Julie.
Question,
I got it.
Julie?
what type of fee do we charge them? Right now, it's, Heidi, I believe it's 500. Is that correct for I mean, do they just go about, get that regular license? And come January 2nd, they just lose the remainder of that $500 permit fee?
That's where I was saying we should somehow phrase the fact that in these particular instances, they've got a custom renewal through January 2nd. And, you know, I would be fine if we wanted to charge them the same amount, if we wanted to charge them a little less. Chad?
That's a tough one. My vote, and not to take any but pocket out of any or money out of anybody's pocket, I would just keep it the same. They're all going to try to change their zoning, right? They're going to be doing their fight. They're going to be spending their effort to make sure they get the rent next year. Not saying they will, but they're not going to just stop and do this and say, you know, like, let them pay the fee, let them present their case, and who knows what happens. That would be my vote.
Tasha?
In regards to the fee, I believe the majority of the cost for the village and what leads to that fee happens up front. It's the sending out of letters, it's all the postage, it's the notification, it's Heidi's time. So whether they rent for 6 months or 12 months, the majority of that fee is meeting that upfront cost.
Good
Do we
point.
have any more discussion? Chris, we'll give Chris Schmeltz the floor. Chris?
Thanks, appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. No, I guess going back to our development agreement discussion in November of 2019, when Denise was there. Chad, I'm not sure if you were there, Nate. I think you were a part of that discussion. We discussed.
Chris, I've got to jump in for a minute. Does
Please.
this relate to the R2 short-term rental issue as we've been discussing it tonight?
Yes, it does.
Okay, all right.
So-
Proceed. Thank you.
Sorry, maybe I'm going a long way around it. So at that meeting for the development agreement, it was discussed if this development would be allowed to have short-term rental. And it was discussed that yes, this development would have short-term rental. So all 18 units, total of 20 units were allowed to have short-term rental and will be allowed to have short-term rental. So at that development agreement, we all decided, the plan commission decided, not we, that short-term rentals would be allowed. So I'm confused at why this is changing. I guess that's.
I'm actually confused too, very confused.
And that was who that mentioned that?
Mrs. Goki,
Okay,
because
you.
it seems like everybody is saying that we overlooked. It's very confusing because we're saying we overlooked this, but now the people who did buy those units and who spent a lot of money in those units were told they were allowed to be able to rent them, and you approved it. And now everybody's turning like the other way and saying, well, it's not. And well, we will allow them to rent until the whatever time that is, but you're not saying anything that you approved it. So it's just very confusing because you just can't do this to all these people who have spent so much money and who thought they were going to, of course, be able to rent their units. And now you're saying, oh, we'll give you till the summer, until the end of the year. Well, no, we would like to have some clarification because you have admitted that you did oversee that and you did approve it. So no one here is saying, or no one here is concerned. You're saying that you're concerned about the tourism that will be coming in and that you don't want to for somehow ruin that tourism. But you're saying after that, what are these people supposed to do? That to me is not ethical from the board. This was approved on the timer. And we really need to have some more clarification on everything that's going on, just to back what Chris said.
Denise?
Well said.
I think the the comment about it being overlooked refers to all of the condos that were built back in the 80s when there was no short-term rentals allowed anywhere. I do agree, and yes, Chris is correct. Nate and I were on the Plan Commission when we were approving your development on the old schoolhouse property. There was a lot of conversation about whether or not they should be short-term rentals. I cannot remember exactly how I voted on that. I was not in favor
It's
of
on the
it.
timer. It's on the timer. It was approved.
Oh, okay, excuse me.
Mrs. Golke, if you want to make any further comments this evening, you can present yourself on the camera with your hand raised. And when someone else is not talking, we'll consider granting you the floor. Thank you. Denise?
So I do view that particular project differently. Plan Commission can revisit that to give you some more clarification, talk about rezoning, to figure out what exactly we do. But the point of it being overlooked really refers back to the condos that were built back in the 80s that Julie was referencing, not your project. So if it's okay with you, Chris, we will talk about that at our next Plan Commission meeting and work a recommendation up to the village board.
Okay, thanks.
Chad?
My motion and Nate's second, Marianne, was to give you guys cover and to give this time to have other things figured out. By no means was it an end all be all. It's just trying to help. Because you can't, we can vote on anything right now, but we can't change zoning. It's impossible. It doesn't work that way. So all that was doing is to make things, give you more time so things can be resolved in a way, whichever way they go.
And not do it in a rushed manner. So
Yes.
we can make sure we get all the input that is out there. We don't know which way this is gonna go at this point, but this is,
Yep.
we're buying time to make a more informed decision.
Okay, I can't have my camera on. I'm so sorry for whatever reason, but I understand that. It's just that at first everyone was just like, well, let's just give the people, time to rent. And I understand what you're saying, but you also have to understand it from the point of view of, it's not just like it's just one rental. It's a lot of rentals, right? And to me, it's just, I'm sorry, it's just, to me, it's just common sense. A decision was made, and Chris and Alan built these condominiums for that purpose, and that, just like Marina View. So, I mean, if there was something that it was overlooked, or maybe it was printed wrong in the operating agreement for whatever reason, everyone knew that it was meant to, some of the units, some of the owners would want to rent them. And it was just, it's been very clear from the beginning. So now the condos are, I mean, obviously they've been done and people have been renting. And I could just even imagine how frustrated all these families are of the money and time that they have invested in, like their future. This is like their family vacation, planning on renting it. I mean, I'm sure they were planning on keeping these units for a very long time. And now this is brought upon them. And I'm sorry, my heart breaks, because it must be very devastating for them.
Alan?
Yeah, so I just want to say, when this was back in 2019, when this was discussed, the village actually wanted short-term rentals. That was something that was discussed. And I think it was discussed in the minutes. So I think that's what's really confusing to Chris and I also, is that's something that was wanting to happen, and now it's just the opposite. So I guess that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, I appreciate those comments that came in that do in part begin straying off course related to the 15 R2 units and the current licenses that we were clarifying here this evening. So we have a motion and a second to permit the 15 noted R2 rental owners to proceed through January 2nd, 2024, with the wording as highlighted by Randy, that I believe Julie and Heidi took note of. Am I correct?
Yes.
Do you want to, would everyone be most comfortable if we have Heidi recite back with Randy here how she's phrasing that? I know I would.
Yeah, I would too. One more discussion topic. I think along with this motion, when that letter goes out to these people and to any of these other people affected by this in their zoning, we should try to give them a ballpark action plan. Like, hey, this will be on Plan Commission in March or whenever. I mean, I don't know when that works for you guys because you guys got a lot going on, but it just shouldn't be a letter sending you get it till this year and no other information saying here the course of action. If you want to request a changing, we should be there to, I'm not saying how it's going to vote, and I'm not trying to give an opinion because quite honestly, I make my living off vacation rentals, but I can also tell you that we have a problem with them. But I do think we should try to be partners. A lot of things are happening in this village that we're not contacting the stakeholders. We're in a small community. I think we should just try to give them a little information as best we can in that letter in ballpark terms about when this will be really resolved for them, when they'll, you know what I mean? Does that make sense to anybody?
It does make sense, Chad, and I would suggest that when that letter goes out, there's an opportunity, and a paragraph could be written maybe in that letter stating what is being decided tonight, that they could sign up with the village for notification of packets. So, you know, Plan Commission, or depending upon what's coming up, that we don't get it wrong on when we think we're going to talk about it or whatever. They will just get the packets like everybody else does. If they sign up for that, they will be notified, you know, before the meeting. So I think that would be a good way to let them do that.
And I think we're talking about making clear in the wording of that, that if they sign up to be on the distribution list, they will receive all pre-meeting materials and agendas that will detail which particular items are up for discussion.
Well, they would get all the information. They would get
Yes, but
every,
if you would send them a letter that says, get registered for email and then you'll receive packets, I'm not so sure that people are going to understand what the packet entails. If we make clear to them that they would be receiving information that would include upcoming board and plan commission meeting agendas with specific topics to be discussed, then I would think they would have the proper clarity on that. Julie?
I just want the board to understand that when we talk about explaining next steps to people, we have to understand that for some people, there's not going to be an alternative. By that, what I mean is, you know, when we look at some of these condos, they are immediately adjacent to a zone that could allow short-term rentals. So maybe it's just a matter of rezoning and pulling that line over. But if somebody is in the middle of an area where you can't do that, the law doesn't allow us to just zone a little chunk out, right? So just so everybody's clear that not everybody's going to have that fix where they can rezone or resolve that issue. And like Nate said, we have to discuss the whole short-term rental thing anyway. So just so when we talk about putting something in a letter, just so everybody understands, there's not a quick fix for everybody. So that's just the reality of it. some people will not have a choice but to cease renting the condo. Unless,
Perhaps.
of course, the rules change.
Right, perhaps, right. That's a perhaps.
And that's
yeah.
all I was suggesting. If the rules did change, I'm not saying they're gonna, I'm just saying that's what it would take. There's their opportunity to try to make that case. That's all I was saying, but thanks for clearing that up more, Julie.
I think that Denise makes a great point that what we can do is we can say, stay in touch with what the plan commission is doing. We're not doing this in closed doors. This is always out there for the public to pay attention to if they want to. So whatever we can do to engage the public better in that process, the better outcome we're going to have for everybody. And we don't, this, I see this as a much bigger issue than R2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So regarding the 15 owners in question in R2, Heidi
Okay, the motion.
or Julie, will you phrase for us how you are interpreting the motion in second at this point in time?
So I'll read you what I wrote down here. A motion was made and seconded to issue renewal short-term rental permits to those currently permitted properties in the R2 zoning district through January 2nd, 2024 only, and take no enforcement action related to the prohibition of STRs in multifamily and condo units in an R2 zone until such time.
Randy, how does that sound to you? You're on mute. You're on mute, Randy. Oh, there we go.
That does sound good. It sounds very good.
Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you, Heidi. So that is our motion and second. Heidi? Heidi, are
Yeah.
you there? Would
I'm
you do
here.
a roll, would you do a roll call vote on our motion and second, please?
Absolutely. Baker,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Berto,
Stain,
Cox,
Yes.
Kadanko,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Zashki.
Yes. Okay. Motion passes and we will move forward as noted. Item number 11D, approval of the contract for animal control services. Regarding Mark Richard, we have a staff report beginning on page 92. Julie, is there anything you wanted to highlight on this for us?
No, just to let you know, Tasha wrote this one. She had worked with this contract in the past and I needed help getting things out, so she took that one. So if there's any questions, she's here to answer them, provide more information.
So Tasha, we essentially we're continuing our usage of Mark Richard to provide animal control services, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
it's the exact same contract otherwise.
Okay, I will motion that we approve the contract as noted in our packet this evening.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
aye,
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 11E, a bid award regarding South Highland Road. Information in our packet begins on page 96. We have a staff report from Dan Klansky. I'm not sure if Dan is with us. Julie, would you like to
Sure.
summarize this for us, please?
Sure, Dan is wrapping up his much needed vacation. This was a project that was in the CIP that, it was all budgeted. We knew it was coming. Basically repairing the road, milling and repaving. Dan is able to squeak out a little bit to make it a little wider to address some of those pedestrian concerns we've been watching. The bid is for $119,400. It was the lowest bid received. So we are looking for approval of that with signature authority to the Director of Public Works.
so moved,
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Moving along to discussion and action items 11F, the approval of marina commercial vendor contracts. We have a staff report that begins on page 108. Julie?
Sure. So it was that time to discuss whether or not to renew the vendor contracts down at the marina. There was a lot of discussion on it this year. There was a lot of really good thought put into it. And the committee did decide to renew the contracts for 3 years. They did say that there is the potential that could be renewed another 2. They have to see after the end of the 3 years. They really beefed up the contracts to address some of the concerns that they've heard, such as garbage, noise, signage, restrooms, people backing up and clogging up the, the docks or bothering the other boaters. So they put a lot of thought into these. All of them are good to go with the exception of the Sister Bay boat rentals. I had the wrong information in that contract, and he saw a couple versions of it, but he didn't catch those errors until after the committee had approved it. So the one that's in your packet is wrong. But we do have a corrected one if you want Heidi to pull it up. But basically, the way that contract should read is that he's operating at the same level he was last year. He's got 12 boats. He's got 5 jet skis. One he does for business, running around and helping. Often lets Dave use it. I think sometimes Dave needs a jet ski as well. The other part of that one, when it was first reviewed, he didn't have who the owner of the boats were. We do know now it's the LLC, so that was added to that contract. You do have a majority of the Marina Committee here, so I think if they have a concern over that, they can let us know. I did reach out to, I was able to get a hold of one of the Marina members who's not also on the board. He had no problem with proceeding to approve that contract as revised as I discussed, which was to say it's 12 boats. It's the 5 jet skis plus the 1 for service. And then, of course, adding that language that those boats are owned by the LLC. Other than that, the other ones are all good to go. A lot of work put into them this year.
So I would like to clarify if we have a representative of Sister Bay Boat Rentals with us, if they could just identify themselves and clarify if they agree with the reality of the amended agreement as Julie noted.
Hi, Rob. Yes, I do agree with it.
Okay, thank you. Thor?
And as legal counsel, I do too. Julie and I discussed it, and we have clarified that it's 6 jet skis and 12 total boats. So.
Okay, thank you, Bjorn. And do we have confirmation, Julie, that Sail Door County, Sister Bay Scenic Boat Tours, and the Boathouse all are in agreement with the contracts put before us this evening?
Yes,
Okay.
we do.
Yes.
One of them actually signed the contract ahead of time, and we were like, wait, we gotta have the board sign it first, but we've been in constant email with them, representatives from each of them. We're good to go.
Yeah, I will motion that we approve the Marina commercial vendor contracts for the 4 vendors as noted this evening.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I'd like to say thank you to all the vendors for participating in the process that got us to the point here this evening, moving down the road in partnership. Thank you. Item number 11G, draft policy on the issuance of reserved Class B liquor licenses, page 155 in our packet is our staff report on this. Heidi, is there anything you want to draw particular attention to here?
I was hoping that you guys would read through it and then ask me questions,
Okay.
if you have any.
I found it fascinating that we're pretty close to the 1,225 for an additional license.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too much longer.
So does that number only good when there's a census?
No, that's based on population estimates, and we do get one of those from the Department of Administration every year.
Okay.
So on that chart, you'll notice those highlighted numbers were the census numbers, but the rest of that is all estimate.
Okay, so as soon as we get that estimate from DOA.
Yep.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
we do have one current application for the license that is available. They have submitted that to the office and paid the $10,000 fee.
Okay.
But my question for you, Heidi, would be, we have the staff report states that the topic of it is a policy for awarding reserve Class B liquor licenses. But in the staff report, I don't see a recommendation from staff spelled out.
So the, no, on page 157 of your packet, these are some criteria that I was able to gather from other municipalities who have had the issue of deciding who gets that very valuable license. And then it's up to you guys to discuss, are these the types of things that you would like to see in your own application? If you want to put together a policy, or if you have suggestions for other things.
You know, I think the bullet point list is good. I guess I'd like to see it in actual,
like an application form.
And then, you know, chew more on it in the meantime, on if there's anything else to add that we would like to add to it.
Sure. I just didn't take the liberty of putting together a form, so I can do that.
So Denise, would the phrasing of that be acceptable as to have an agenda item for next month's board meeting that presents us a draft for the policy for awarding reserve Class B liquor licenses?
Sure.
Okay.
Is there anything missing though from that list that you want included?
I just read the packet today, so I haven't had time enough to think about if we should add additional things to it. So I will do that between now and next month's meeting and you know, make any suggestions at that time if, you know, if the board agrees or disagrees, if I have any.
Chad?
Without trying to influence it, because I think it kind of maybe is a little unethical, because I part own a place that has this. I would just, and I won't be on this board going forward when you guys make decisions, but I would try to, as thoughtfully as possible, create a system, create a you know, a way to give points in a fair way. So, because you're gonna have a lot of people wanting these, right? And it's gonna be a really tough decision. Who do you pick? Why do you pick them? And it's going to be a whole lot easier if you come up with this criteria in a very thoughtful way before you have 30 people going for them, especially with one more coming in a maybe next year, if our, you know, based on our population growth, that maybe even next year that extra one comes. So it's going to be a hot issue, and it's going to be contentious, and, you know, some businesses will be bringing their lawyers as they always do. I would figure out a way to make it as easy on you guys as possible by having it as unbiased as possible. That's just my guidance for you, and good luck.
Well, you're going to have the opportunity next month to either recuse yourself from.
Yeah, I'm going to be on vacation next month.
Or weighing in on it. Denise?
So following up on what Chad said, so do you think that we should actually assign points to the criteria that we're looking at? So, you know, if you 1 through 5, so if you've been in business for X amount of years, you get 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1 points, so that it's maybe much more clear on who we should give it to, because there's actually a point system, which takes less of that excruciating decision that the board will have to make kind of off their shoulders, because there is a point system.
That's exactly what I'm saying. You find things that you value the most. I'm not going to tell you what those are, or even give you inclination. I mean, I know what I would value the most, but that's not for me to say. Find the things that make the most sense and value, and come up with something. And it's going to be hard to even come up with that, right? But that would be my 2 cents on how to do it, because then it just makes it, hey, this is why we're doing it this way. You know, obviously somebody that lives in Sister Bay or lives in Door County versus somebody that lives in Iowa, right? That would, to me, that would be more valuable. Somebody that has an existing business in our community already, that would be more valuable. I mean, but you guys do it. You know?
So Heidi, we're also then going to task you with assigning 1 through 5 point values for each question, because some will be much more important than others.
Okay.
And we
All
can
right.
adjust.
So we will look forward to that next month. And we also, before we move on, Don Cox has.
Yeah, I just was wondering, like, who's going to actually establish the questions, and then what committee does that for this particular license? I mean, is it, I wouldn't have any idea.
It's the village board.
Yeah, it'll be the
All right,
board that works on it. And that's
So,
what.
all right, good. All right, I really honestly, I didn't know. I didn't know. So that's interesting. So yeah, it should be, yeah, it's like any RFP, right? It's really exactly what it is. It's just developing the criteria for an RFP, and we'll have to decide collectively which things are the most important on who gets a liquor license. Wow. Okay, here we go.
It's going to be awful. It's
Have
going
fun.
to be awful.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't wait for that discussion.
Especially when they work in the algebra with the mathematics of the point system, Don, then it's going to really get confusing for us.
Well, that's the easy part. It's establishing which criteria are most important. So that's why Chad, that's why you're taking off. I get it.
I'd have to recuse myself anyway. I wouldn't be able to really vote on that, I don't think.
Yes, I know.
Okay. So we'll look forward to that next month, Heidi. Thank you. And we are grateful for your leadership on getting that draft done for us. Item number 11H, filed under the category of there's something else we should have been doing that we haven't been, that Julie unearthed. We have a discussion regarding the process or lack thereof that needs to become a process for the annual announcement of availability of meeting notification lists. And I will turn this over to Julie and her staff report that begins on page 159 of the packet.
Sure. So this really came to light when we enacted the rule about the garbage for the short-term rentals. I think every short-term rental we sent a letter to called, and they're like, well, how do we know what's going on? And I said, well, you can sign up to receive, agendas, etc. And when I was talking to staff, they said, well, yeah, if people want to, we put them on a list, but we don't advertise that list, basically. And what I found was the village was not aware that by statute, you are supposed to annually announce there's a way for people to receive your agendas. And it is your responsibility to decide, do you do that by putting it in the newspaper? Do you mail something to everybody telling them about this available list they can get on? Or what do you do? One way to meet statute is to just post it on your website. And that's what my recommendation is, that today you declare that anybody that wants to be notified of the agendas should visit the website. And then by the agendas and minutes, we can just put a little notice that, hey, if you want to receive this, sign up here. We have to figure out how to do it, but that would be the easiest, I think probably the most effective, and certainly the least expensive.
Denise and then Chad.
Chad had his hand up first.
All I was going to say is, I think if you guys can have a platform on the website to collect the emails and then just do an email form, I wouldn't mail anything. Right. And well, I mean, if somebody needs mail, I get it. Right. I'm not trying to exclude anybody, but I think if you could just we make the notice, but let's not make the notice until we have a platform for they go to the website, put their email in to receive this information. So it's automated, because that sounds like a nightmare for staff to have to do. I don't know if that's possible. I know it's possible. I just don't know if our website is easy to alter.
Yeah, just a note on that, Chad. You're right. Right now, it's not that easy, but we are looking at redoing the website.
Yeah.
And that is one of those user-friendly things. I know we've talked about newsletters, and it'd be nice if you could sign up for that and push that out, quarterly or something. There's a lot of information we have that would be nice to get in the public's hands. And I know Denise has advocated for that as well. So when we do the website, we can make it easier. But for now, yes, it'd be a little cumbersome, but it's probably the best way, in my opinion.
We should just look at having an email list service set up. You can have a landing page for it, just link to it from the existing website, and then you don't have to worry about redoing the website and that whole thing. You could get going on it right away. So email list service.
Yep.
Denise?
So I don't think our website is the only place that it should be. I think that we should advertise it in the Pulse for a week with not a huge ad, but there's a lot of people that never come to Sister Bay's website, will never scroll down to find it. Will, at least we will get much more exposure in the Pulse along with putting it on the website. So if it costs us, $150 to put a decent size ad in, I think that's what we should do also.
Chad?
Denise, yeah, I meant that, but I wanted us to maybe have the capabilities to harness that information
Yes.
first before we do
Yep.
that. But I
Yep.
agree. Let's get it out there a couple times for sure.
Yeah.
We just had a comment come in on the chat. A woman had suggested that perhaps we send something out with the tax bill. Which means another way is we could do it through a utility bill as well.
Yeah.
Those utility
Mhm.
bills are too small and nobody looks at them because most people have them just swept out of their accounts.
And there are some messages that are in queue for those for the next few of those as well. Do we have
Okay,
any
so a
fur-
motion on what we're gonna do?
Does anyone have a motion they'd like to offer?
Don't we just need general consensus?
Yeah, that'd be
Okay,
fine.
do we have general consensus then that we'll proceed with website and targeted local newspaper advertising on this topic?
Again, I would say an email list service. That's really what we should be doing on there. We should also, when we put that Pulse site, we should drive people to sign up for that. Let's make it available in paper format, but let's drive them to that. We want to keep as engaged as we can.
Yep.
Agreed.
Okay. So do we have consensus on those 3 points? And we know that Julie and Heidi have noted them.
Yep.
Okay,
I'm
thank
good.
you, Julie. We will move on. We will go to item number 11I. Any questions for Tasha on the financials and the monthly bills as noted in pages 161 to 170 of the packet this evening? Hearing none, I'll motion that we approve the payment of all bills as noted.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 12A, committee appointments. Regarding the appointment of Sarah White, I want to clarify for anyone in our public this evening who was not aware. We're addressing this evening primarily because various trustees who motioned and then supported to appoint Sarah to the board immediately as of this evening made comment in public forum that one of the reasons supporting that would be that we have had a lack of involvement in certain committees since Mary Lyons' resignation, and that it would best benefit the village to have someone at the trustee level immediately re-engaging with those committees. So with that in mind, I asked Julie to put on the agenda that we discuss appointing Sarah White to fill the 3 committee vacancies as noted in the packet that Mary Lyons had been participating in effective tomorrow. And that we also consider whether along with that, we wanted to also appoint Sarah to serve on what is now the currently vacant seat allowed to us on the Tourism Zone Commission. And in concordance with this, the Tourism Zone had mentioned to us that it would be time for us to put somebody into that 3rd open slot along with Julie and I. So I will offer that up for discussion if we have any discussion or comments from my fellow trustees. Denise?
So welcome again, Sarah. This conversation is about you, but my comments aren't necessarily particularly about you. It has to do more with a lot of the board members turning over in 7 weeks, give or take. And I have no problem appointing you to Library Commission or Coastal Byways. But I do think that Door County Economic Development and the tourism zone are just so steeped with background information that I personally think that it would be a waste of your time if you were not going to continue with those after the election. Usually after we have an election, and whether or not there's a lot of trustee change or not, the president sits down or talks to every trustee, sees if they're still happy with the committees that they're on, see if they want to change anything, go on something else, give up something, whatever. And for those other 2 committees, I just kind of feel for 1 or 2 meetings that then may change, it's a waste of time and brain power to go to those to try to grasp even what's going on those 2 particular committees. Library and Scenic Byways, much easier, not as intense discussions.
Well, that would be Coastal Byways.
So Denise, oh, sorry.
We'll let Sarah respond, and then it will be Nate, and then it will be Scott.
Just a clarification. So I did do some research on all of these different committees in the event, based on wherever this conversation goes. I hear what you're saying. And so what I'm understanding is that we'll sit down in April once the 3 new members of the 3 new trustees are voted in, and we would actually sit down and potentially be appointed to different committees, is what I'm understanding, based on who are the new committee or who are the new trustees, where are their areas of expertise, how can they best serve the community? Am I hearing that correct? So
correct.
I'm gonna jump in for a clarifier
Okay.
there, Sarah. Denise may well be referring to how she carried out that process during her tenure as president.
Okay.
Going back in time to Dave Lenau's presidency, knowing firsthand from being a trustee on the board when Dave was president, his process was announcing upon the first board meeting after the election that trustees were to reach out to him to express any interest in particular committees they might have. And one particular year, Dave employed in essence, a sign-up sheet saying, fill in which committees you're interested in, get this back to me by such and such a date. So the actual process will be organic between the president at the time and the trustees at the time. As far as, so just keep that in mind.
And how much of the appointment is in partnership with the committees? Is it done at the board level, or is it in partnership with the?
Okay, appointments, basically committees are populated by the president making appointments for the board as a whole to vote on. Historically, in most cases, during my involvement, there's been certain committees may have a process where chairs of the committees bring forth to the president candidates, or the president can come up with candidates on their own, or candidates can present themselves for consideration to the village administrator. So, but ultimately, who gets on what committee is voted on by the board upon a recommendation by the president at an agenda item such as this.
I'd actually like to let Scott speak before I do.
I just wanted to remind everybody that and maybe this has changed from my tenure on Door County Economic Development, but they wanted a 6-year term. That's one of what their board members serve. And they wanted a 6-year. I had a 5-year because Pat Duffy took the first year and then he had some family issues and couldn't do it anymore. So they're going to want somebody for a long term. So they have kind of a contingency to carry on. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I still have the sheets that Dave Lino came up with that we had a lot of trustee involvement with. I think that's been lacking the last few times. So I would hope that whoever is president does get far more involvement from the trustees and reaches out to them in a better manner. I think that I understand your point, Scott, that DCEDC is something you do need a longer term commitment for.
Yeah.
However, the board can never commit to a 6-year term. I mean, I did a 5-year term as well because I filled out 1 year yours because I knocked you off. I just kind of pushed you out of the way, Scott. I admit that.
I know it's been that way since the beginning.
Yeah. But I guess I understand what you're saying, Denise, but I think that we should see what we can. I mean, if Sarah's available, let's have her go and let's have her jump in there, especially on the tourism zone where she does have other people that can help her fill in some of the blanks. And DCEDC, the worst case is, I really would leave it up to Sarah's discretion. Worst case is you go to 2 meetings and then you don't, for whatever reason, you don't stick with it, or you're not chosen to stay with it. Those would be 2 meetings that you're out of. Now you'll get a better understanding for what DCEDC is in general, even if you aren't the representatives. But I believe this would be at Sarah's discretion if she wants to step into that role or not, understanding that it may be a time investment that doesn't pay big dividends in the long run.
Okay.
How does everybody else feel?
I mean, she can go to my parks meeting. We can start giving her some of my stuff.
That wasn't on the list,
Joke.
Ken.
It's a joke.
Scott, did you have, was your hand up there, Scott?
No.
Okay. So I guess my feeling on this would be, what I'm hearing this evening is much different than what we heard a month ago when it was voiced that it was entirely necessary to get her involved as soon as possible.
You heard from one person that said that, Rob. You're not hearing anything entirely different. We all think differently.
So if the board would like to come up with a motion as to any of this, or if the board, if there is consensus that we would like to hear from Sarah in this particularly unique situation, considering the timeline of new trustees coming in and the fact that she was appointed to an unexpected vacancy. Julie?
We need to hear from Sarah. Well,
that's what I'm asking. I asked, is there consensus? So I'm assuming your answer, Nate, then would be yes, that you feel there's that we should. Does anyone else feel the same?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Sarah, how do you feel as far as what you would consider, what you would like to start undertaking effective tomorrow, or what you would like to wait if you would choose to hold off and just continue with board meetings until after the election when everybody weighs in with what they're interested in?
Do you want to ask one clarifying question? I see Mary Kay made a comment that DCEDC met yesterday, and it sounds like, if I'm interpreting that correct, you guys are waiting until after the election, I'm assuming, to hold more meetings or to accept additional members.
I can answer that,
Julie,
Sarah.
thank you.
Yeah, I can answer that. So at DCEDC, they don't require the representative be from Sister Bay. They just are looking one from another municipality. We've always participated in that. So I think they I think rely on us to send them someone. It can be a trustee, it can be a staff person. Mary is on that board, so Mary's very familiar with, what happens there, and she's always been very good at attending those meetings. What she is saying is DCEDC said, let's wait until after the election before we get a new appointment, because regardless of what we do, DCEDC still has to accept and approve that position. So we could recommend somebody and they could say no. And so what she's saying there, and Mary's adding that they're also talking about taking a Liberty Grove member for the first time. So it sounds like DCEDC wants to wait to make that appointment until after the election. And then
Makes sense.
if we submit a name, they still have to approve it before it's effective.
Okay.
That
So
makes
then
sense to me.
so then my question is, do we have sentiment after everything discussed tonight that rather than piecemealing one or two possible assignments out of the various vacancies, that we wait to assign Sarah to anything until the assignment process in April after the election?
I think that we assign, if Sarah's willing and she's able to do it, I think we assign her to all of the committees that Mary had, less DCEDC because of the information that was just disclosed. That's what I believe we should do.
Go with that.
And then, so you're saying, and then not the tourism zone?
I said except for DCEDC, not DCTZ. So I would include DCTZ because that one is a little bit different. That is, we have the statutory right to have the representative there, and we should have a representative there for every meeting that's happening.
Okay, we have two representatives there at each meeting now. We'd be adding a third, just for clarification, so that it doesn't sound like we're in absence of having a representative there.
I'm saying that we have the voting power of an additional member.
Exactly.
Chad?
Mary wasn't on Door County Tourism Zone, correct?
Right.
And you might be getting a trustee that works with room tax. There's one of them, if he wins, that would be probably a good appointment for him to be on. So I would be in favor of just at this point doing Library Commission and Coastal Byways. And then seeing how it shakes out for somebody that's vested in the tour, that understands it a little bit. They may have more of an interest in being there. They may not, but it's just an idea.
And do you want to offer a motion, Chad?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we appoint her to a Library Commission and Coastal Byways at this point.
Do we have a second? Second by Scott. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carried. Julie?
Can we by consensus agree that we'll change the committee and the board bylaws and not have to bring them back for formal approval, but just amend them to reflect these appointments tonight?
Refresh my memory, what part of the bylaws stipulate an annual announcement of who fills the committees?
I have to look back. Heidi, don't they, maybe I was referring to the tourism zone one.
Yeah, I
Actually,
don't think there's anything in the Library Commission or
Rob, I think you're right.
Coastal
It's the
Byways that says that we have to be making a record of who fills those positions.
Right, I was wrong. It's the tourism zone, but if we're not addressing that, we'll amend those bylaws differently. My
Okay,
mistake.
so we have a motion that passed. So Sarah, congratulations. Effective tomorrow morning, you can touch base with Julie and Heidi and find out about your two new positions effective this month at some point.
Wonderful. Thank you all very much. Appreciate
Thank
the
you very much.
discussion.
We're glad to have you. Item number 13, staff reports, beginning on page 175 of our packets. Utilities operation report. Is there anything that we have questions on there, Denise?
A large water leak was found by the village hall and repaired. Where was it? What did it damage? Where did it come from?
Okay, let me jogging my memory here. There was it went under the street. We ended up having to shut the water off in part of the village. And fortunately, the only other business, or besides the village hall, the only business affected was Johnson's and L. Johnson's. And we were able to time it so that it was repaired on the day that they were closed, which was good. I'm trying to remember what the leak was from. Dan just, what we noticed was we were going through a tremendous amount of water, and of course, there's nothing happening at the village hall. So Dan knew that something was going on, so they went, and I think he had a probe down there, I'm not sure. And they found the leak, tore it up, repaired it, put it back down. If you go out there, you'll see it's kind of muddy and kind of torn up there yet. They haven't been able to fully repair it due to the weather, but they were able to catch it before it got worse. So, and I'm sorry, I don't remember any more details on that.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions on any of the staff reports?
No.
I have a question for my fellow board members. I have a discussion point regarding in terms of the parks report and regarding what's not on the parks report. And I need to give a little background history to my question. At the most recent Green Tier meeting, during a discussion about lighting in general, in public, as a matter of public forum, I mentioned that with all my daughter's sports events and coming back at weird times, both near dusk and well after dark, for some time had been in a pattern of noticing that all the lights in the maintenance building were on at all different kinds of hours, before dusk, at dusk, and on to late in the evening. And my point specific to Green Tier at the time was, I guess because it's an old building, we don't have sensors that shut these lights off, but you know, if we were to ever move that building, wouldn't that be a reason to support? We should have obviously green friendly sensor lighting. And Julie clarified that actually the reason I had been noticing this pattern of all those lights being on in the building all through the night was for security purposes, because there had been break-ins, which to me at the time sounded plural. I mentioned to the board that I would find it either appropriate at this time to have some further explanation and discussion on that, or if there's consensus that that issue should be treated as in an upcoming staff report at the next meeting. Does anyone have any feelings on the board one way or the other?
Just a clarification, what I said was there's a couple things. I said we leave them on sometimes for security, and then also if they're like drying something, like if they're curing the tables or something like that. So it's not just the security reasons. And you know, there's probably times it's been forgotten as well. So.
But the words were used because of break-ins.
That was one of the reasons I gave, yes.
Okay, so I guess where I'm coming from, I would say to my fellow trustees, where I'm coming from is, I think if we're having break-ins at one of our buildings that has various apartments and single-family home residences surrounding it, we need as a board to say, what are we doing about that? And is leaving all the lights on a suitable answer? In my opinion, as our bylaws and as the Code of Municipal Conduct book says, it's our job in a village to manage the oversight of the village. In my opinion, this is managing the oversight of the village. What do we consider a proper fix and attention to this situation?
I think it should be on the next Parks agenda meeting.
Okay. Is there consensus on that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we will make that as an agenda item for discussion on the next Parks meeting. Thank you. Anybody else with anything from staff reports? Okay, moving along to committee reports. The Administrative Committee has nothing to report at this time. Coastal Byways, we'll be looking forward to Sarah taking the helm there. DCEDC.
Wait, Rob, I have a question on Coastal Byways.
Okay,
I called and talked to Julie today because the minutes from the January 16th meeting stated that Heidi Tyke will be the new representative for the Village of Sister Bay, and Julie was going to try to get a hold of Anne. Is that incorrect in those minutes? What did you find out?
So I
It's in-
talked to Anne and she did say that was just a misunderstanding. She thought when Heidi reached out to her to tell her that Mary wasn't going to be available, that meant Heidi was the appointed person. I explained to her, no, that we were actually discussing tonight whether we were going to make an appointment, and I'd be back in touch with her tomorrow. And she said, great. So that's just an error in their minutes, or a
Okay.
misunderstanding in the minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. DCEDC, we discussed status on that this evening. Emergency Management Plan Committee met on Monday. Denise chairs that committee. Does anyone have any questions for Denise?
Yeah, we don't have minutes yet, seeing that it was just yesterday. But you will be seeing us meeting in the future and an RFP going out for, what exactly is it called, Julie?
It would be for consultants to walk us through an emergency operations plan.
Operations plan, so that we will have a notebook, a ring binder, something that will give protocols for what kind of disasters happen in the village, what happens, who's in charge, et cetera, et cetera. And so I really look forward to getting to work on that process.
We also talked about the fact that board members didn't take their NIMS training. So we're going to try and do an in-person one where you have to sit there and take it in person. So you can look forward to that.
Yes. And if you're a nerd, you will enjoy it because I did.
Not sure if that nerd
I'll take your word for it.
categorization applies to chairing the Finance Committee, but Denise, is there anything to note from Finance Committee?
I do have a question for Tasha pertaining to the presentation from DDC. And that is, so I presume that we received the $50,000 check and the municipal reimbursement. How are we processing that? Do we have a line item in the budget for this? And maybe it's not, maybe we should talk about it at finance and how we want to deal with that.
That was the plan.
Okay.
So we received the $35,000 from last year. At the end of 2022, we had not applied for it yet because the plan was to use it for the new bus in coordination with the grant, the CMAQ grant. So that money is sitting in reserve for that specific purchase. The $50,000 we received this year has been put into capital reserves, and it is awaiting allocation to a tourist related project.
Okay, so we'll talk about it when we have a finance meeting. Okay,
Yes.
very good. That's all I had on finance. Thank you.
Fire Board meets March 22nd.
Correct.
Ad hoc Green Tier Legacy Community Committee. We've been meeting twice per month. We'll meet next on the 20th and 27th of March. One thing to clarify for everyone, trustees may recall that it's been discussed at previous meetings that there's an annual update required to be produced, a formal report that each community or village or municipality in this program has to send into the state on an annual basis. And we had noted several times that ours would be due at the end of March. State of Wisconsin has changed that till the end of June and is the deadline, which possibly may get extended because for whatever reason, the score sheet as to how each municipality is doing has become exceedingly complex and multifaceted compared to how it used to be, to the point that they've created a response category of unknown because so many people are looking at this saying they're not even sure why that question is there, let alone that they would be, as a municipality, involved in it or doing something about it. So there's some questioning going on amongst the various committees in the state. So we have a process in place with Dan Klansky and Julie to begin work on that new score sheet next month. But it could be a much longer process to sending in our report than what we had initially explained to people. Historical Society, Scott?
Met on the 2nd, we presented the 2023 budget, did a little discussion on that. Also discussed and scheduled some of the 2023 events and dates. And we have another boat was donated to be sold with proceeds going to the Shadow Fund, which is about the only income the Shadow Fund has. But anyway, that's it for historical. Any questions?
Thank you, Scott.
Yes, sir.
Library Commission, we'll find out more about as Sarah gets involved. Marina Committee, Scott.
Minutes in the packet from February 8th and February 10th meetings. Both of those mainly had to do with the vendor contracts.
Thank you. Ad hoc Outdoor Recreation and Transportation Plan Committee.
Has not met.
Okay. Parks, Property and Streets Committee, we meet next, we have a 12:30 special meeting on March 6th, and then we meet for the regular meeting at 2:30 on March 6th. Any questions on what's in the packet? Personnel Committee meeting is next to be held in April at a to be determined April date. And Plan Commission, any questions for the Plan Commission Chair regarding what's in our packet?
I do have a request that on one of our next agendas, it does not necessarily have to be next week's agenda, depending upon the length of it. But when we were talking at Parks about whether or not we wanted to do that neighborhood park, and it was not recommended at this time, but I did bring up the possibility that the Plan Commission could require developers set aside money and or land for the creation of additional parklands that would not be the responsibility of the village or require its staff to maintain, possibly even having to hire an additional person and another expense. I'd like that to be put on one of the next upcoming Plan Commission agendas for discussion.
Sounds like
Definitely.
an excellent idea. Moving on to SBAA, there's notes in the packet. Both Julie and I were unable to make the last meeting. There is going to be a matter for the board to weigh in on related to a situation with SBAA that I'm going to just give you an overview of, and we'll agenda item this soon. As you may be aware, Janelle, our village employee administrative assistant, has been the privately contracted minutes taker for SBAA for some time. Apparently, there was a decision prior to my involvement by the board, I believe, that it would be okay for a village employee to fill that role if they were technically not on village time, but being employed as, in essence, a private contractor. My assumption is that the reason that relationship was allowed to come to fruition was because there was a theory that at the time, for whatever reason, it was the village administrative assistant who would be able to take minutes. That being said, Janelle was at the meeting as a private contractor, but in my opinion, did the absolute correct and ethical thing by reporting back to our village administrator that there was substantive changes put forth to minutes that Janelle referenced as being not what was on the tape, and that the tape reflected the minutes as they existed for a prior meeting. So the minutes remain on the tape in a form that fits the minutes that were voted on by the SBA board to change in 5 targeted areas of the minutes. My point being, I believe what was best moving forward is to not, to be thankful that in essence, a village employee went to their supervisor and said, this just didn't feel right, it happened, but because of this deal, I'm there taking the notes as a private contractor. I think we need to consider soon whether we want to continue having a village employee in essence punch out during a workday, move over to a meeting for any committee or organization in the village, and then be a private contractor and then come back to the village. It would seem like this is an instance that brings forth the need to just have an organization handle their own minutes so that a village employee doesn't have to be the one contracted to do it. That's something that we'll need to discuss on a future agenda item for a meeting. Ellie, you're on mute.
All right, thank you. I just want to address, I guess, the minutes being changed for that meeting. It is per the recording. We're happy to send that recording to anybody. So those minutes that were changed follows the recording of the meeting, and we'd be happy to send that or to anybody that's interested. So I don't appreciate, or I don't agree with how that was portrayed. And we're happy to send the, amended minutes and the recording if anybody's interested in seeing that.
I appreciate you mentioning that. It underscores the point I'm trying to make, that we've got a village employee who felt they were in a touchy position. They reported what they were uncomfortable about. And, do we want that, if this had just been a case of, whoever was taking the minutes for an ancillary organization presented minutes, it would be between them and somebody who didn't happen to be a village employee that could create, a question. That's my point. Denise?
Rob, I think that, oh, I'm sorry.
I wholeheartedly disagree with you, Rob. I think if there is somebody who is contracted to take the minutes for SBAA, be hired by them, I think it was unethical to tattle to the village. I see it totally different.
I appreciate and respect your opinion the same as I do Ellie, but to me, that just underscores my point that wouldn't it be best if we just weren't allowing ourselves to be in a situation like that moving forward? Chad?
It's hard to admit this, no offense, but I agree with Rob, let's get Janelle out of the position so it's not a conflict for her or anybody, right? Not just her, it's not a her thing. Yeah, I think that just makes sense.
Ellie, you're on mute. Oh, there you go.
I was gonna say, us as SBAA, we're fine with that course of action. We can find either a board member or figure out somebody else to take minutes. We don't want this to be an issue. We don't want to put anyone in an uncomfortable position. We want to be transparent. So if anybody wants to listen to recordings, view the minutes, we're an open book. So I feel confident. I know I think Louise had to hop off, but I'm confident that we would be okay with that decision.
Okay, Denise. And then
I
Julie.
would like the recording and both sets of minutes sent to me.
We'll make sure that happens.
Thank you.
Julie?
I just want to add to you know, I think this is getting portrayed a little incorrectly. Janelle did not tattle to me, that term was used. You know, Janelle knew I was not at the meeting, and I asked Janelle what happened, because I have made all those meetings since I've been here. I was not able to make that meeting, and she explained to me what had happened. I was glad we could have that conversation and that she was there to let me know what happened. So I just want to clarify that. And I think if there's further discussion on staff's role, that should really be happening at a personnel meeting.
I think that we refer this to personnel then. I think
Yep.
that might be the best course of action.
Let's include that on we'll include that on the agenda for the April personnel meeting. And just to clarify for everyone, that's as timely as we can have a meeting due to some extended absences that committee members are going to have. So we're being as timely as possible so that the full committee is available for the next meeting. Moving on to Tourism Zone Commission, there's notes in the packet. Sewer and Water Utility Committee has not met. Village Hall Planning Task Force, there's some notes in the packet. We've had some excellent initial meetings, including our most recent meeting, which was at the Village Hall itself, doing a thorough walkthrough that involved our Director of Public Works, beginning to gather information on various. It's clear that X, Y, and Z would need to be attended to in terms of maintenance, repairs, et cetera, under the auspice that we're moving forward, saving it for us to consider at the next meeting. The other thing we'll be defining with the committee at the next meeting is the scope of what we envision the Village Hall being used for, and how that would pertain to the scope of remodeling that happens there. We will be meeting again on March 6th. Denise?
So on your next meeting, when you're going to be talking about, what can be held there in its current state, or, if conversation ends up that there's additional square footage added on, I don't know. But one thing that I guess I'd want your committee to do the math on is that according to the fire department code of capacity for public access space, there is one person per every 7 square feet. So I think you need to determine the capacity of the Village Hall when you're talking about the kinds of things that you can hold there. Now, you can't take the entire square footage of the building. You have to remove the square footage of the stairs, of the bathrooms, of the kitchen, of the elevator. So basically what you're talking about is the main room and the stage. So I think you need to have somebody pull a tape, figure out how many square footage, what your capacity is, to have more concise conversations on things that can be held there. So how many people can actually be in that building.
And we actually started having the conversation on capacity when we began discussing the main floor area, and if whether seating or terminals for public use, et cetera, for computers or whatever, if we were going to consider retrofitting the floor, that there would be capacity situation like you're mentioning to consider. So thank you for that additional clarification. And
Yep, now you can do the math
we
and
will
figure out what it is.
incorporate that into where we go. As I said, Village Hall Planning Task Force meets next on March 6th. That will be an in-person meeting at the Village Hall. Anyone is welcome to attend. Item number 15, do we have any matters to be placed on a future agenda or referred to a committee official or employee that has not previously been noted this evening?
I make a motion to approve the committee reports.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Do we have any matters to be placed on a future agenda or referred to a committee official or employee that were not previously noted? Hearing none at 8:44 PM, I'll motion that we adjourn for the evening.
I just want to point out that this is likely trustee Kadanko's last meeting as a trustee, and I just want to see if he's got anything last he wants to say while he's still sitting on the trustee seat.
Good luck, guys. I'll second that motion to adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody. Good